As you can clearly see, LeBron James, in this week's episode of Cartoon Buffoons, I'm your host, Wyatt. Who's here with me today, as always?
Hello, I'm Morgan. I'm Count Spankulax Renfield.
And who is our very special guest for today's episode?
Hi, I am Malcom, also known as Malcman, is here, and I am currently in the possession of the very rare Rainbow Monkey toilet plunger. So,
Cool.
I have it safe here, right down here in my basement, and I will only accept a. Okay, I'm done with the bid.
The $20,000 bid on eBay.
$11 billion dollars.
Yeah, that's good. That 11 billion, that's good. We are here talking about another classic show from that second wave of shows on Cartoon Network, and that is Codename Kids Next Door. We just talked about some pilots, and some of them, including like Kitty Bobo, which we talked about, were in the same package as this.
And they got their asses kicked. They got their ass
rightfully kicked. So. Because Kids Next Door, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. Fantastic show. Big thumbs up. I have loved, I love revisiting it. I frequently revisit it, not just like for the podcast, but like I didn't need to watch that many episodes because I've already watched most of the episodes like a year ago.
Big same.
So it was very easy to just go back and refresh my memory and everything, and it'll be fun to talk about. But Malcom, I want to ask you, before we get into things, what is your history with Cartoon Network, and also what is your history with this show specifically?
So, looking back into my memories, the way I got into Cartoon Network is like a bit fuzzy, but I'll do I try my best to recollect, because growing up, around when I was going to elementary school, I was a PBS Kids watcher, because my parents didn't have cable. So like most of my earliest experiences is with shows like, Arthur, Caillou, Cyber Chase, Dragon Tales, Maya Miguel. And then maybe once in a while I'll catch something on Discovery Kids like Kenny the Shark, Time Warp Trio, or Tuttenstein. And there was a period where we would live in a certain house with a TV that had like the big back, that had the big thing in the back, those old stereotype TVs. And at a certain point we decided to move into like a new house along the way. But I do recall at some point, I don't remember when, we did get cable, and I was able to catch like Cartoon Network every now and then, somewhere during the CN City era. But even before then, I remember cases where I would go to a friend's house or relatives, and we would just watch whatever was airing on Cartoon Network at the time before then. Because as a cartoon lover, I would just end up trying to watch whatever I could that was animated. And it was tough doing that, because, you don't really know you could watch cartoons online if you know the right site. And also, if you have parents who don't let you watch things on a school night, then you're really limited in what you can actually see. So it's like Friday and Saturday, and you couldn't watch on Sunday because Sunday is when you had school the next day. So
yeah, I've been there.
But early to mid 2000s, I remember the Powerhouse era. I remember the CN City era, and then pretty much everything after that. I wasn't a fan of Har Thursdays because, again, school night, could not watch any new episodes then, so I have to catch reruns. And after a while, there's that period in time when you stop getting into like cable, either because you have other responsibilities or you're trying to do things. Like I was in the Boy Scouts. I was busy going on camping trips and trying to, get to the point where I became an Eagle Scout, which I eventually did. I do remember.
Awesome.
I remember seeing video. I remember using that to watch episodes of shows. And during high school, when I wasn't watching Cartoon Network on cable, I was watching the new episodes on Xfinity on demand because they had a system in place where you could like watch new episodes the week that they aired, and that's how I would keep up with shows I liked. And so that's basically
what era of CN was that? Like, what was?
That was
like
during the
show?
early 2010s. I would do Xfinity on demand with a mix of cable, depending on the day.
Yeah, I still did have cable in my room up through that. I want to say like probably up through like 2013, 2014, because I at least had cable long enough to watch through all 3 seasons of Transformers Prime. So like 2014 or whatever was, or 2013 was when that ended. And then after that point, for a while I didn't have it in my room. Then I got a smart TV in like 2017, and then I was able to use my parents' cable login to just watch stuff on the app. And that's how I got, that's how I caught OKKO when it was first airing, and was watching stuff like Apple and Onion and like, which is awesome, by the way. We'll get to it way down the line. But like in Unikitty and Craig of the Creek and things like that. And yeah, so like, and then now that I've like moved out on my own, I'm like, I am not paying for any type of cable, so fuck that shit. And so I'm just on my own. But it's awesome to hear that story about, because it's very relatable to me, that because I also didn't have cable as a kid, so I was watching like a lot of PBS and stuff like that, and I would be like, oh, when like Zoom or something would be on, or stuff like that, I would be like,
Zoom?
this isn't a cartoon, or like, or there's no puppets or whatever in it. Like, I need that to be the case. Like, I need it to be either a cartoon or Between the Lions. Like, that's what I need.
Yeah. My child brain cannot handle seeing these fleshy humans any longer. I need to go back to animation or puppets. Yeah.
Where is Oscar the Grouch? What is going on?
Yeah, I didn't have that problem with Zoom, but when I got older, I had that reaction to the Electric Company reboot that they did for some reason.
Oh my god! I did not know that. I had forgotten.
That happened. Oh my god!
That seems.
No, that's actually kind of.
But I guess
it reminds me of when I saw promos for the Speed Racer movie back in like the late 2000s. Like, I'm actually one of those very rare kids who had a parent that watched Speed Racer when they were like a child.
Oh, cool.
And they actually got DVDs to show me like the stuff that they grew up on. Like, my dad had DVDs of like Gumby and Kimba the White Lion. And that's how I like became a fan of like those shows and appreciation for like older animation. And when I saw the promos for it, I thought, this is live action, this isn't a cartoon, and I ignored it out of that. And for the longest time, the reputation of that movie was that it wasn't a good movie, so I ignored it. And since there's been that reprisal, I've seen that movie now, and it's like this was the movie that was tailor made for me. Like, I was one of those rare kids that grew up on Speed Racer, and this would have probably would have been breathtaking to see in the theater. So yeah,
I feel like the modern version of that is like Alita Battle Angel, like that, where it's like,
oh my god,
where that came out, people were like it got kind of mixed reviews by critics, but people were like, this is like one of the most anime fucking movies that you've ever seen, and then you watch it and it's like, yeah, this is like, they are like spot on with the manga, like as far as like the fight scenes and the style and everything goes. It's like really respectful to the source material, and it feels like they understand what's cool about it and what's cool about anime and things like that. Speed Racer. I have not actually seen Speed Racer, but I have read the manga, which I know sounds like such a like.
Oh my god! Get out of your own.
Let me read the book.
Oh
but,
my goodness! Come on.
But it is great. It's a great manga. So I have I think that's like I have a lot of love for Speed Racer / Mach Go Go Go. You know.
Oh, fuck you.
I believe IDW or like Marvel or something printed that. But ironically enough, I also grew up on the Battle Angel Alita manga as well. Even though it wasn't exactly age appropriate. It was like with all the other comics in my local library, so that's how I ended up.
Yeah, that's funny.
I still
have you
think
seen the movie?
I plan on to, but like I want to like complete the manga first, you know.
Okay.
Whenever I get back to it. But now I guess.
So how about
Codename Kiss Next Door?
Go ahead. Yes. That's what I was going to get into. I want to know, like, when did this show? Was it just like towards when it came out, or was it after the fact since you didn't have cable, like at an early age?
Well, it's kind of interesting because like this show came out in like 2002, 2003 or something, and you know it's one of those shows that's like it's popular enough on the network that they will rerun episodes and do marathons occasionally. So I ended up watching it every now and then. If
they also aired on Kids WB, if I remember correctly, like they would do that with some Cartoon Network shows.
They did it
and
once,
vice versa.
They did it once with Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, I recall, because I also watched Kids WB as a kid as well. But none of the other Cartoon Network shows, to my recollection. But Codename Kids Next Door is particularly interesting because it's part of that Sin City era, so anything from that era I watched. And like you said, it's when rewatching the show, usually when you do these rewatches, it's like, oh, this isn't as funny as I remember, or this is actually much more deeper than I remember. And what's interesting about it is that based on what I remember, the most significant parts of Kids Next Door, which we'll eventually get into, Codename's Kids Next Door is exactly how I remember it, which is such an interesting feeling because you expect to like, you know, like all those memories flood back, but it's exactly how you interpret it. And, you know, unless you dig deeper into them, it's pretty much just as you remembered as a kid, which I find interesting.
Yeah. Morgan, how about you? What is your history and your like perspective on Kids Next Door before we get into it?
Kids Next Door was like my show. Like I think this was like very much the era when I was like watching these shows hardcore, and Kids Next Door was very much the one. I remember actually when it ended, that was like the beginning of me going, I should look into other stuff. Let's make HBO let's make HBO Oz my personality. No, but like seriously, like I remember so vividly the show beginning and ending. It's kind of wild. So like I had like a really strong connection to it. I remember vividly being young and playing Kids Next Door with my friends outside.
Right.
Like that kind of stuff. Like it's like I went to work with my mom when I was young, and I like, ooh, here's the website. We get to make your own operative. Open that shit the fuck up, baby.
Cool. Yeah.
Her name is number 18, and just like get really into it. What weapon do I use? Fuck yeah, I hate number 4. Like me making my characters and stuff. Like very much the birth of like my first ever like OCs and shit. Definitely came from this goddamn show.
For me, it was Transformers, but you probably already know that.
Yeah, you know that came later for me. I had to become I had to at least be 17 and then currently having sex before I made a Transformer OC because I was weird about Transformers. Yeah. So like I needed to wait until I was like partying and like I should be
now
at the club,
Transformers is cool.
Like I should be at the club. I am at the club, but I'm in the back of the club thinking about what my OC's relationship with Starscream is. That's what happened. This is the pure Morgan era of OCs that I was making.
I guess I can make this point now since you're talking about like OCs and whatnot. Because I mean, if you're someone that didn't grow up with this show as like a kid or you just weren't watching TV at this point in time during the 2000s, you might be like confused to find out that this show has like a following because like on the surface, it just seems like your average kids versus adults type thing. Maybe a bit of imagery, maybe like a bit of fantasy and whatnot. And I think I wrote something for this magazine called Blood Knife, an article called Rated G for Globalization. It's about children's entertainment and whatnot. And a point I make about is that often adults, when they go and prop up certain TV shows as being smarter than they are, it's usually a result of like unexpected complexity, because they're going and expect it to be very baby down, but then they find out that like, you know, there's actually a lot of thought being put into this to this particular show. And to relate to the conversation, and I think Codename Kids Next Door is an example of that, as I'll show in this meme right here, because I found this meme on Tumblr. I'm going to post it in the chat regarding Invader Zim, and I'll read it out to the listeners. Basically, it's a cycle meme template that someone made. Where the first one is, this is unserious comedy. The arrow points to some of these concepts hint at truly inventive world building. And then the arrow points to this is an intricate sci-fi. And then the arrow points to the answer to every question is because it's cool or because it's funny. And then it just circles back again. And I think Codename Kids Next Door is like an example of that, because yes, it is very much like a kid's show with a lot of like, you know, things that kids would find appealing or funny and whatnot. But also there's like a lot of thought put into it in regards to how the character dynamics work and how this world's set up and these hierarchies. And this is not just for these two in particular. Like, if you ever wonder why like shows like Darkwing Duck or Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers or Kim Possible have like large followings that go into like adulthood, it's because it has like characters that they really like, or like an art style they enjoy, combined with the thought put into like the world and whatnot, which I think is very interesting. You know, like when you compare it to stuff like Lord of the Rings or, you know, Song of Ice and Fire, it's this very particular aesthetic that will click with like a certain group of people.
I say as a fan of both of those other things, like as a bit, like this is the thing. A lot of people will take being like very enthusiastic about a cartoon or something meant for children as in like, oh, you're immature or you don't understand good quality. It's like, I understand. I read big boy adult books. You know, I love The Song of Ice and Fire. You know, I love Joe Abercrombie and Robin Hobb and Wuthering Heights and things like that, you know. It's just that I also, like you said, you can see, like, I like to like look at something and be able to appreciate what the people who are making are going for, like what they're trying to like get out of the creation, and you know, on a world building level. I like appreciating that stuff and pointing a lens towards it. This doesn't necessarily mean I'm not deluded into thinking that it's like high art. I'm just trying to kind of objectively point out that there is a lot of effort and love put into crafting, you know, this kind of story or world.
Yeah, like, even like when you go down to the like, these are still like, even if this stuff is made for kids, they're still adults who have been flavored in their lives as like existing and reading and consuming stuff that work on these things. It's impossible to make something and not put yourself and your own experience into it. Like, if you're doing that, you're making something fully devoid of anything. So, like, Absolutely. It's always nice to see that stuff. I think this also comes to, like, something that I wanted to talk about before we get really into the show. It is fucking insane that Mr. Warburton wrote every episode of this show.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy. I can't imagine the idea of having 78 episodes and going, I gotta touch at least every single one. What do you mean? That's so much work.
It's the same case with Ed and Eddie creator, where he was like the supervisor of every episode.
You know, that's also wild. Like one of the cool things about being a showrunner and making the concept is like, you don't have to do that. And
absolutely.
Nah, I want to do it.
You
I'm like,
delegate to other people. You know,
I want to be on every single. Like, that's crazy. Also, gotta be that person. Shout out Mr. Warburton, Philadelphia original. That's why he's a weirdo. All people in Philadelphia are weird as shit. Let's go. Shout out.
But I did want to say one thing before we move on is, you know, you put up this the like cycle meme. This exact pattern of, like, literally word for word is how I felt like watching Wander Over Yonder season 2.
Yeah.
I was like, season 1 is like, oh yeah, this is funny. It's just a comedy show. And then I was like, oh, hold on. Like at the beginning of season 2, I was like, there's actually some really good world building. And I was like, this is like good sci-fi. And then like at the end you realize like, yeah, I mean it is good sci-fi, but most of the stuff that's happening is because it's funny or because it's cool.
No, that's the thing. Like, you can't write goofs in a show for longer than 10 episodes without naturally, if you care about it, if you care about something that you're making, if you work on something for longer than 10 episodes, you will make world building inherently. That's just how things are going to go as you're creating something. And it's one of my favorite things to see. Like, it's in everything that, like, the longer you make something, the deeper the world gets. And you go, man, this is kind of cool because you care about it, And, like, sometimes you're writing a joke and you're like, wait, this joke would be funnier if I did a callback to this thing we set up.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, even Billy and Mandy had that. Like, it had a universe that developed to the point where, like, by the final season, we have, like, a standalone Fred Burger episode. We have, like, Dracula and Van Helsing, their origin episode. Like we have things like that. So it's just like we have we have the Wrath of the Spider King with like the backstory for Grimm. Just like a ton of that stuff where it's like obviously in general the show has gotten like wackier, goofier as it's gone on, but it still is naturally building its own world. And like Kids Next Door is a very interesting example of this because I always felt, even as a kid, we can finally get into talking about the show itself. That like the first season was sort of made as a self-contained season because there's not much in it that suggests like a greater world.
Wider,
there's some things in it that like hint that they have this idea of more than just number 1 through 5, but for the most part it is just like very very self-contained, and the finale feels like it could be a series finale. They fight with the delightful children from down the lane and with father for the first time, and
number one's old, and
number one gets turned old. I remember like as a kid, and then like it even ends with like a special credit sequence, which I always love.
Of them rebuilding, exactly. It felt like I truly like doing this whole show with you, Wyatt. I really realized that like I love fake pseudo endings of shows. I love season 1 endings where people go, here's our could be the end of the story but might not be. They're all really good except for the Curse of Cowardly Dog one where everyone dies. That one's real fucking sad. I don't know what's wrong with you. But
season 2 ending, that was a good, the Doctors are Lost, like that's great. But continue.
But yeah, like that's like the best. I love that ending. I love like that. Yeah, season 1. I think season 1 of Kids Next Door feels so good as like these kids in their neighborhood, and it's so nice to see the transition to season 2 where you could just know in the writers' room they're like, I don't know, what if we add more kids? Like you can just see them saying it out loud. Like, what if we just add more kids? And they do it, and they do it so consistently, and it's so nice, and it feels great as it happens.
Also, they expand on just like how the Kids Next Door operate in a sense, because season 13 is actually the first time they reveal that like when you turn 13 they do what this thing is called decommissioning, where they zap you and erase all your memories of the Kids Next Door and you become a teenager, which is an interesting element to put into something that is like supposed to be like a silly cartoon, and we could get to that when we get to the overall theming of the show. But it is something that they do end up expanding on later in the series.
Yeah.
I do think the decommissioning is great because it lends itself to one of the funniest things with Kids Next Door on a rewatch. I realize is that this show is so consistently referencing stuff that they stop being references and start just being the world. It's insane. Like, they gotta sit in this big machine that gets rid of their memories. What if that was like the movie Men in Black, where they do that? Or like, like the show is like so consistent like this. This is a reference to something, but it's never references that are made timely, if that makes sense. It's references to like whatever Mr. Warburton was. Like the fact that we get a Suicide Squad episode in 2004 means this motherfucker had that comic ripped open and was like, dude, this would be a funny thing to do on my show. This show like references, like, I can't even begin to express how they like, it'd be cool episode to do what? What if we did an Animatrix episode? What are you talking about?
That's what I was going to say.
I actually have notes on that because, that wasn't the first time they made references to the Matrix, with the kid choosing either the red or the blue lollipop. But it is kind of interesting, because the Animatrix being referenced in this and Warburton being a fan of the Matrix films is interesting because, this is still around the time when people are dissatisfied with the Matrix sequels.
Yeah, with the second and third movie, yeah.
And much like Gendy's Tarkovsky's Clone Wars cartoon, the Animatrix is seen as this thing that, basically the Wachowskis giving them what they weren't given in the two sequels, which is expansion on what the Matrix is and more action stuff and just building upon the world. And it is crazy that they obviously just did this because they thought it would be fun, but it's kind of crazy that, only, maybe 12 people would get this at the time, because,
Yeah, I mean, especially kids.
It's very much it feels like I said about, all of them, that, Cartoon Network has a very artsy vibe to it, but this cartoon, more so than the others somehow, feels like the animator's cartoon. The animator's favorite animated cartoon. This thing references so many cartoons and art styles, and there's a lot of golden age comic book love in this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anime love in this. There's a lot of cartoon shorts and cartoon short love in this. You could tell that Mr. Warburton is someone who shopped this around a lot. Did his contemporaries who were doing their own shopping, because there's so many good references to other people's cartoons and work that you know of. It's really neat, and I think it's cool that he did this as a love letter to cartoons. And it feels like a show about kids is the perfect medium to do that. It's the perfect medium to do a Dragon Ball Z thing. It's a perfect medium to do a Super Friends thing. Because what is cartoons if not important to children?
Yeah, speaking of the cartoonist cartoon, I've noticed that, with the exception of Ed, Edd and Eddy, this is the only one of the original lineup of Cartoon Network shows that nobody has tried to ape the style of. Because Powerpuff Girls, Stitch's Laboratory, they owe a lot of their style and look to UPA shorts. And then over time, pretty much every single one from Canada to wherever in France have basically got that down to a freaking formula where it just becomes the standard, which caused people switching over from thick line animation to thin line animation, as we'll go into the 2010s. But it is interesting that no one has tried to because it really shows how stylistic and significant that style of character design Warburton does, as previously in Pepper Ann, but more so here with these slightly oval shaped heads of all the characters and extremely thick lines, but it's very specific that you could tell, if you were to design a character for the show, people would immediately go, it's Kids Next Door, as opposed to a background character on Johnny Bravo, and most people probably wouldn't be able to guess it.
Because that's more of a house style, it's more of a generic house style with Johnny Bravo and Dexter's Lab and stuff like that. Whereas this, like you said, Pepper Ann, obviously, it has a huge tastemaker for this.
Yes, even some Doug too, because he did work on Doug too. You could kind of see the Doug, Pepper Ann to Kids Next Door pipeline. You can start seeing the stuff as it keeps going.
I do want to point out you posted this from the Operation Report, where there's the 5 short stories and the different styles based on the characters. I just, as a Dragon Ball fan, need to point out that for the one, seeing that as a kid, the Dragon Ball Z parody
with number 4.
Yeah, I was oh my god, this is one of the first times I've seen a cartoon parody anime in general and actually understand what they're parodying, rather than just making fun of it or making it Speed Racer or whatever. And I'm not saying when Dexter's Lab makes fun of Speed. They're boomers. That's why they're making fun of Speed Racers, because that's what they grew up with. But they would make fun of Sailor Moon or new anime in a very generic way, whereas this feels very like observed, especially like those pecs are spot on to
the
like
squareness, yes. Like
yeah, to like Super Saiyan Goku like / like that Cell Saga era of like drawing like
I think
perfect.
it's because like it's a sniper shot reference, right? Like I think a lot of anime references, like even if you like go back to like like the Billy and Mandy one and stuff like that, they're doing a general sweeping. This is an anime reference or this is a Japan reference, right?
Yeah.
Kids Next Door's not doing it. Kids Next Door's like no. This is a specifically Dragon Ball Z reference. We are not referencing all anime. We are referencing just Toriyama. And I think that serves it so well from an art style standpoint. And the jokes work better there because they're only referencing Dragon Ball Z. Like,
yeah.
I think whenever they try to hit everything at once, it feels, for lack of a better term, a little racist and like kind of shitty. Like, so like when they like, no. Our joke is for this one show that we enjoy. That I think it works so much better. Like,
I mean, you look at this and there's like, oh, what if Frieza was also the Ginyu Force? Like that's the joke with like the delightful children from down the lane being, and it's like so good. Like I'm looking at this and I'm like, it looks so much like Toriyama's art. It's just like ridiculous that they were able to copy that so well. Wow.
They even mimic the rock music used in the Ocean dub.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
like
good. So good.
It's like from a place of like, these guys were probably watching this weeks before they get into the studio to start working on this. Like they were like, oh man, like cause like they're like, oh, what should we do this time? Guys, someone's like this. I don't care what the fuck we doing, guys. I have to do the Dragon Ball Z one.
Yeah.
Wait, and they're like this. Which of the 5 of them would be most likely to watch Dragon Ball Z? And everyone said at the same time, number 4. Number 4 is obviously the one who's watching Dragon Ball Z. Like,
he would be getting into power scaling arguments on Twitter right now. Like that's.
Shut up, number 3. Of course, Gohan is stronger than just screaming at you on the internet. He tells you to kill yourself because
she's really into like Demon Slayer or something. It's like the pathetic. They're not even continental, Like so far.
He said, Gojo's not a world level threat. He can't be Goku. I should kill you. Like he's just getting really pissed.
But I did want to bring up that like go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to bring up, speaking of anime, Benjamin Diskin's voice actor. Doing the very rare of voicing characters in American cartoons, moving over to being exclusively like a dub actor for anime, as most recently as voicing
it's so funny here, especially like
in Codename, which premiered just like a week ago.
Yeah, like, and of course, like, probably most infamously as Joseph Joestar, the second JoJo, from Battle Tendency. Like, hearing, that I've seen, when I was looking up as you can clearly see LeBron James clip, I've seen so many versions of it where people just took that voice clip and put it over Joseph. So it looks like he's saying it.
I think it's the Britishness of number 1 that makes it just Joseph in my brain so often. Like, if he was anything but British, it wouldn't be Joseph. But it's just Joseph in my mind. Also, we got to give credit to, I love that you said best known as Joseph. This is Sai Erasure as a Naruto fan. I'm killing you. I'm killing you in my mind.
Well, it's because I hate Sai, so that's the...
Well, fuck off, you fucking...
That is like one of the worst arcs in that...
Oh my god, shut up.
I'm sorry.
There's so many bad arcs in Shippuden. You want to harp on the Sai one? Dude, shut up.
Because it... Yeah, okay. Well, we don't need
sorry,
to
guys. We're going to get a second podcast called Naruto Buffoons, and me and Wyatt will fist fight on it as we talk about the things we love and hate about Naruto.
We have discussed the idea of doing like standalone episodes for Dragon Ball and Naruto to be like, all right, these are sort of the most influential anime that came out on, like we'll do an episode on Toonami and Adult Swim eventually, but like just standalone episodes just talking about Dragon Ball, just talking about Naruto. Hakusho. Yeah, Yu Yu Hakusho might be a good one for sure, because that's like huge to me. Go ahead. Okay. Well, okay. I wanted to bring up one more thing about like anime references, is that in modern day, people get really hot and bothered about anything, either a reference to anime or like if stylistically a show tries to like be like anime. And I think that there is nothing wrong with like those kind of references personally. Like people get mad at like OKKO or whatever, like from out of context clips and say like, oh, it's just references. But let me tell you, I never laughed harder in my life than when in the end of season 2 of Craig of the Creek with the like Jinx kid and was fighting against like one of the ninja kids. And Eustace, who's the leader of the ninja kids, like, you know, she gets jinxed. One, she says, "Nani?" before getting, like, blown away, which is very funny. And then the reaction shot of, like, the reveal of, like, what happened to her. She's in the exact Yamcha death pose.
Yes.
Like, in a crater.
I don't know. Like, I'm like, guys, I'm sorry to say this, and I know it's going to hurt. Most cartoons all of us grew up with. All of us. Even, you know what? Even Looney Tunes stuff is just references to other things. I hate to say
like
it.
Shit from the 40s.
And the thing is, there is a way to do references where it's annoying. I'm not going to pretend there's not, right? Mm-hmm. But like, listen, every so often, it's fine. As long as you have your own actual plot and you're not just referencing stuff, it's fine. People are so up their own ass about it. It's like... Yeah, it sucks sometimes, but like, no one's doing Family Guy style cutaways to like a Star Wars episode. And I'm saying this as a Family Guy defender, but like, come on, guys, grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
All you need to do is just tell these people that, or at least remind them that Akira Toriyama literally has a character based off of Superman, and just how he uses it's just like basically just looks like Superman if he was like a little person, basically.
Yeah, I mean literally Charlie Brown too, like Krillin, Charlie Brown, like that kind of character. Like Peanuts is a huge influence stylistically on like especially early Dragon Ball, with where Goku and Krillin have like small bodies, big heads. And then of course Dr. Slump, you know, has like that style too.
I just found out. I just found out 2 days ago that One Piece has a character that's literally just a Garfield reference.
Yeah. These guys are nerds. Like it's cultural exchange. Like
that's just the nature of animation. That's just how it goes. It keeps going. Like it's
being nerds, just like to reference, you know, like referencing the stuff in the sense of like, yeah, this is cool. Wouldn't it be funny if I put this in there? Wouldn't it be cool if I just put this in there? You know, like put this thing in there.
And they're usually right. Like that's the thing. Usually. Also, side note, I don't know how I didn't pick up on this. That the fucking Mr. Wink and Mr. Fib are just those James Bond villains that do the same thing that they do during the Like the amount of times that he's just like, bro, like he just transplants whatever villain of something he is into Kids Next Door, but go like, what if the thing is, Ali, hold on, this brings me to the formula. The formula of Kids Next Door is truly things for adults, but through the viewpoint of a child. Yeah, and it never gets old. It never, ever gets old. And I think that's really crazy that it doesn't get old. Like, bullfighting. But no, it's bully fighting. Bullies are fighting with, like, they, like, throw pies and they bully you. But should they go up against the actual bull? No. What's the natural enemy of a bully? Is it a weak nerd? No. It's an angry father. And I'm like, that's a dark joke, but you're right. An angry, abusive dad is the villain of a bully. And I'm like, man... They're just cooking. I can't, like, literally the thought process of which they pull out, like, what would be the ultimate villain for kids? A father with a temper so bad he lights things on fire with it. And I'm like, they're onto it. They're taking it, bro. They're taking it.
Yeah. Oh, like, man. And him, I love Father so much. Such a great character. Like, so funny and like, you know, what Maurice LaMarche as him is just... Big thumbs up.
Fantastic performance. The comedic timing on the way he speaks. Like, what's this flavor of ice cream? I hate it here. Just he's so mean.
This could be a good way to lead into like what I was talking about earlier about character dynamics and what the show represents thematically. And I guess if we want to get into like what the meat of the show is, it's basically like generational divide, like. And in a way that's like metaphorically and whatnot, because you talked about like father being like the big ultimate villain, and I think it's pretty genius because like fathers are seen as like the the leaders of the household and whatnot, and that comes with a lot of like power and abuse of it, which I think is a pretty interesting take. But also throughout the show you'll see like divisions and alliances based on like generations. Like you have the teenagers, the adults, the elders, and this goes to like our main characters. Like Abby is fighting with her when they get to season 2. They have like Abby, number 5, fighting with her sister Cree, who's like a teenager. Then there's
literally
an
named Cree, which is great.
Cree Summer, and then you have Hoagie number 2 fighting with his grandmother, and it goes into like, and I think it really mirrors just how like
number 3 with her little sister.
Right. And I think it just mirrors how often, like, people will, like, make alliances or cut ties based on, like, sharing ideas or values or, what basically their interests are. Like, you see online all the time, like, people fighting each other's based simply because, like, they're boomers or Generation X or millennials or Zoomers or Generation Alpha, and, like, making alliances or whatnot so they could take down this specific generation because they annoy them or they blame them for the state of the world. And it's maybe not intentionally, it is something that is truly really represented in this show, but like in the eyes of like a child. Like it's specifically, even though it's like with all like the technological stuff and throwing pies in people's faces, it is very very much like, I am in this specific generation, I don't understand these other ones, and we are trying to protect this one thing. Like, I borrowed this from TV tropes. Their idea of the central theming of this show is protecting childhood and accepting one day that you're going to have to grow up, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy your childhood while you still have it.
Yeah.
I think also, like... Oh, go ahead, White. You go first.
Well, I'm just saying, just in the idea that, like, they introduced later on that there are some, like, deep cover operatives, like people that don't get decommissioned after a certain age. And I think, that's obviously, like, world building, and it's, like, an interesting element of that.
But it's for viewers.
But on a thematic level, it's like, after a certain point, you don't necessarily have to stop being a Kids Next Door just because you're no longer a kid. You can continue to enjoy these like things in childhood, despite the fact that you had to grow up and you have more responsibilities, and like accepting that and accepting, like, it's interesting how they're able to walk that tight line between, accepting that time will move forward and your childhood will fade away, and the fact that it's like growing up doesn't mean the death of all your joy and everything that you remember from childhood.
Yeah, no, I remember so vividly. Like, it's also really well timed. Like Operation Maurice happens when I was 14. Like, I remember vividly, like, being like, okay, well, feel a little weird watching Kids Next Door because I'm 13 now. And then that episode comes out, I'm like, you know what? This is actually kind of nice. Thank you, guys. Yeah. I'm getting into trouble. I'm doing other things. But this is nice that this episode comes out. The show very much does, like, in the later half of it, go out of its way to really have a lot of episodes where adults aren't antagonists. And, like, also teenagers are antagonists. Like, the episode where, like, Nigel wears the tie. Like, they go out of their way to make sure he works with an adult in that episode.
Yeah.
Like, they showed it, like, these ideas of, like, hey, this is an adult who hates the work that he has to do as an adult.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks. Like, these ideals of, like, freedom and being a child and what that means isn't inherent to just being a kid. There are teenagers like this, there are adults like this. You don't have to give this up. Even to the point where, like, at the end of the series, they're like, oh, yeah, the big plot is to destroy all adults, good or bad. And they're like, no, that's wrong. Like, I think one of the greatest things is that across the board with the Kids Next Door, like our main 5, all of them have pretty good relationships with their parents. Like, even though like they all like fight bad guys, none of their parents are particularly like, villainous or antagonistic. The closest that comes is number 3's dad, and I think he's just crazy. Like, I don't think he's like a bad guy. He's just bonkers in that way very eccentric fathers can be, you know? Like, it's really nice. It's like a really good way to... It's not it's just fucking... like, it's a great way to, like, really show, like, this show is about people that fight bad adults, but not all adults are bad. Some of them are, and they should be beat up and tortured. But
yeah, of course, yeah, that's right. But I did want to like give a highlight. Yeah, like that the Maurice, that is like, I mean, it's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah,
Carrie in the show. Yeah, Carrie Payton as Maurice, and like, you know, just that entire. It's such a like one. I think like if I had to really think about it, like number 5 probably is my favorite of the team, you know, just because I think that she gets a lot of really great episodes.
Yeah, she has the most depth,
and she has like, she has a lot of depth. And then I just like that she has her own sort of like side conflict with like her sister, and then like with this other
her like, being the oldest
big
too.
Brother figure, out of all of them, and like, you know, like Kree, I always thought was like a interesting character because of, you know, being like, the big sister, you know, like obviously it's like typical in sitcoms and things for like the teenage sister to be like, you know, a brat towards the kids or whatever, to be like kind of mean towards the kids, but like to turn that to the point where it's like it feels sad, like it feels like she is, you know, sort of like throwing away this shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Because like in a way, like you like it feels like when you like have family and you know you're all going through different stuff, it does feel like you're sometimes at war with certain people because like you don't understand them and they don't understand you.
Yeah.
I think like I do like the episodes wherever they work together, and like I do like the episode where like they give Kree this giant nasty pimple, and number 5's like, hey guys, this is actually fucked up. That is in fact my sister. Can we not do that kind of shit to her, please?
Yeah.
Like it always feels like there's just like they're on the brink of reconciling, but there is still this divide of like, well, my sister is like fucking 3 years older than me. I really can't hang out with her. It's nice. It's like it feels very real. Like if like this, like even when they were at home together with their parents, a lot of that like Kree and number 5 beef kind of goes out the window because they love their parents and they just want to hang out. Also, don't want to talk about this long. Gotta say, man, no joke has aged worse in this motherfucking show than number 5's dad's being Bill Cosby. That joke is aged like fucking milk, and it's not their fault. There's no way they could have known. But I just want to say, boy, that aged like shit.
Not just milk, but also OJ, because when he first appears in the show, he literally has a carton that just says OJ on it, and I still can't tell if that's like intentional or not. But fun fact, I actually found out he's voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, which sometimes voices Bill Cosby in certain segments on Family Guy. When it's not being done by Seth MacFarlane, and it's very particular. Like you could tell like the difference because when Seth MacFarlane does it, he mainly just talks like this, just like a regular Southern old fart. But when Kevin Michael Richards does it, he really emphasizes the vowels and the syllables and the dog.
You gotta give black jobs to black people, bro. He can't. He's not qualified. Kevin Michael Richardson is qualified for it.
One thing I was Kevin Michael Richardson, amazing voice actor in general, of course. But like his range is crazy because I remember when they announced him for the Mario movie, and it's like, oh, he's Kamek, and I was like, what? That like the nerdy wizard, like right hand man to Bowser. There's no way he can do something like that, and it's like, he does it perfectly, you know.
Yeah, I truly think we should just let him have a whole show by himself because I know everyone talks about it. It's kind of played out this way to talk about it. When he cracked out that Joker for the Batman, I was like, motherfucker. Yeah. He can do anything. He can just do anything he wants. Fuck off. Like
I just think of it like maybe because of Bulkhead and Transformers Prime, but he just to me is like absolutely perfect as like the big guy, you know, like in the team, like especially like in a show that is like science fiction or whatever, will have like aliens, like if it's like a big rock alien guy or something like that, like I'm just like, that's Kevin Michael Richardson, you know, like
honestly, James Gunn, just get him to be Kilowog. Like let's cut out the middleman, dude. Let's go.
It would be perfect as that. So it's just like I don't know. But yeah, in other, we should talk about some of the, you know, we talked about Ben Diskin, we talked about Cree Summer a little, you know, because she does both number 5 and Cree.
Yeah. Actually, we're gonna talk about the voice cast because man, oh man. Well, I have to say, deeply surprised at the casting of the original team. I was so ready to be like, oh man, is Kooky voiced by a white person? Because they do that. And to my surprise, no.
Yeah, no.
We've escaped it, everybody. We did it.
Yeah, Lauren Tom.
Yeah, Lauren Tom. And she does a fantastic... Go ahead, John. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was also surprised as well. And looking up Lawrence Tom, it's not specific Asian because Kooky's Japanese and she's like East Asian, but like I believe Chinese. But it's still impressive they actually got an Asian person to voice an Asian character.
Yes, that is progress. That's progress.
And if you look on sites like behindthevoiceactors.com, it's like if you really listen to the voice and piece it together with this specific character, it actually makes a lot of sense. Of course they voice this character. Like she's also Amy Wong on Futurama. She voices Connie and her mom on King of the Hill. She's the There Is No War in Ba Sing Se girl from Avatar. And also Jinx from Teen Titans, which makes sense. Like, because Jinx was Indian, Asian in the comics, but here she's gray. But they still went for the effort to get an Asian Asian character. She's also in the adaptation of the Joy Luck Club, which has become infamous in certain Asian communities for being like, you know, offensive until like recent years when, you know, people actually started watching the movie and was actually like pretty good. So that's something I have to check out sooner or later.
Okay.
I think like Lauren Tom's like as a voice actress, I think sometimes number 3 will get without a doubt my favorite jokes on Earth. There's an episode in season 1 where they see the guy like who's growing the big vegetable. Can't remember the vegetable right now. And he goes, "Oh my God, it's Grandpa!" Like this. Number 3, that's not your grandpa. Yes, it is. He makes good noodles, and just like, I'm just like, fuck. I don't know why that was so goddamn funny. Like, because the thing is, though, number 3 isn't dumb. It almost feels like it's a bit she's doing. Because there's episodes she like just stops and she goes, "You guys think I'm an airhead? I'm just joking around." So it just makes me go, is she just doing a bit on them? And I think that makes it 1,000 times funnier. That like whenever she gets really serious and mad, just like the hospital episode like this, we got to save him. I love him. Like, and number 4 like, wait, you love him? And they go, and like, is that Bradley the skunk? Number 3, that's not your son. And he gets really pissed like this. That's not your son.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's so good. It's so funny.
A similar joke I liked was in Operation Pirate, which is from like season 2, I believe. Where like Kooky is being chased by some pirates from Captain Stickybeard, and she like rolls a bunch of gumballs to like slow them down, and I was expecting like, oh, they're gonna trip on them, but no, they just stop and then just start eating them off the ground because they like candy. And I thought, okay, that's pretty funny because I was not expecting that. The quick subversion there. Like I want to give also another shout out to some of the other characters like off the main cast, you know. So Jennifer Hale as number 86 is like
good. Jennifer Hale kind of like also
the perfect culmination of all of the like it's taking Princess from Powerpuff Girls and like taking it to the absolute extreme. You know, it's like still a like very annoying bossy redhead, but like when she's like Irish or whatever,
Irish,
like
yeah.
And then like just like even more, like she's even more annoying because she also is like kind of she's basically a cop, which makes sense with the Irish accent. And it's just like so funny. Like she's I remember like even as a kid, like my friends or my brother or whatever, like they'd be annoyed. And I was like, this is just fun. Like I understood that it was funny.
Yeah,
rather than like annoying.
Are you telling me that Wyatt's favorite character that he found funny was the annoying girl? No fucking way.
Morgan, you're going to be... Let me reveal a secret here. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, like watching this show, one of my very first cartoon crushes...
Oh my God.
It wasn't her. It was Cree. So...
Yeah, of course it's Cree. Yeah, I'm going to roast you to hell for that. Like...
Yeah. So you can read into that to whatever degree you want to, but
the first of many black queens Wyatt has a crush on. Thank God, we're being represented. But like, I think another great voice acting is yet again Rachel McFarlane in the house as number 362. Damn, she's everywhere. I don't remember her being everywhere the way she is. But I guess she is. Yeah,
we have less comedic character. Yeah,
Greta Liesel as Lizzie, who is the funniest character. You're like, oh, she's so annoying. Yeah, and she's fucking rules.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Like these characters that are like people see as like annoying or whatever. It's like, but that's the point. Is that they are annoying. It's funny because they're like, it's like, oh God, this guy, and then you just like, if you actually like sit down and listen to what they're saying, it's
hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
I also go ahead.
And it's cool to see like a character like have some characters part of the supporting cast that aren't involved specifically with the kids next door in some way. At least until we'll get to the end about that with Lizzie. I'm sure you know about get the Galactic Kids Next Door, but like it's nice to see be something because it shows that the Kids Next Door is definitely like an organization. It's not just every kid that's secretly into it. It's something that you have to like be into. But
yeah, they're mostly like protecting kids that aren't in it.
Before I get back,
which is the majority of kids.
I wanted to what was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about the Oh yeah, I was just gonna give some credit to Wyatt. If we were talking about cartoon crushes from this show, from me personally, we'd be here all day. So just to let you know, you're not that. But
yeah, good. That is good. Yeah, because I want to highlight that because like when we're kids, like these shows are impressionable on us. I'm sure there's plenty of people that had like weird or slightly embarrassing cartoon crushes, and I just want to bring that up. I want to state it because I usually don't talk about like nowadays. I'm not a very like horny guy. I'm not like on Twitter. I'm not like talking about waifus or
You're adjusted.
Yes, I'm a well-adjusted person. But I'm willing to admit that I'm like, oh yeah, well as a kid, I had like these crushes on like cartoon characters.
I have to say, we're gonna get back to voice acting, but first, I can't even begin to express how formative number 5 is for me.
Yeah.
Not only is she a black girl, first stop, I'm locked in, right? She's also like the episode where they all get hit with the feminization ray, and all of Kooky stays exactly the same, but they de-studify number 5 is so fucking funny. I'm like, that's what would happen to me. I'd still be the same gender. I would just be de-studified. I'm like, yes, dude, come on. Listen, look, I didn't quite have the words for it, but yeah, guy, I'm a little bit of a masked lesbian in a number 5 kind of way. Let's go. Give me my red hat. Lock in. Like, it was so funny. Like, I like, why do I like her so much? Why do I like her so much? I'm older, like, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
No, she's just cool as shit.
Yeah, it's not embarrassing like with Erwin and
it's not
Billy and Mandy, because it's not voiced by a white woman. But as far as characters I relate, pretty obviously number
Number
two
two,
was
yeah.
the fat Jewish kid was the one that I related to the most as a child. So also has a crush on Kree. So there you go.
I think when it comes to like other voice casts, it's so funny that every third villain is Tom Kenny. I can't get over how just like Night Brace, it's Tom Kenny. Chester, it's Tom Kenny. Common Cold, like they're like nasaling him to hell. They're like, hey, that's a high nasal. Can we get a little higher for the next character? That's pretty high.
Kenny
Can we get a little higher for the next character?
Like he's a huge presence in the. I was surprised that Sticky Beard was Mark Hamill. Like that really threw me off. Like I did not. I was like, what the fuck? And then I just remember like, oh yeah, this is like peak. Nobody gives a shit about Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah, he's just working.
doing it. And then this is also like peak, like this is right after SpongeBob hits it big with like season 3. Tom Kenny is in like fucking everything that exists.
He gotta pay them fucking bills. He's
he's in like a million things at once.
Mark Hamill literally appears in Pepper and Warburton's previous show, where he literally has a nerd taken away by security for even mentioning Star Wars. That's like an analogy.
Yeah.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. I also think the fact that Kookie's family is 3 Asian people all speaking with Tara Strong there is maybe the funniest thing. Tara Strong is a darkness that will follow me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Because hers Mushi is like, she doesn't do a bad job, right? But I don't know. I think Tara Strong has poisoned herself in a way that will never be fixed. Whenever I hear Tara Strong, I'm just like, oh, can we lock up?
She's not doing like an Omi style, like
oh my god,
Asian sort of.
It's basically
voice, exactly. Like she's not, which makes sense because she's, like the youngest daughter. She probably, like those younger kids, they don't have like the accents, of the like generational immigrant parents.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. It's just like, in some ways it's a nice win that they have Lauren Tom, and I remember watching Futurama and being like, oh, that's number 3, when with Amy.
Yeah.
And then of course like Min and Connie in King of the Hill, and then like later being like, oh yeah, of course she's an Asian woman instead of a white lady playing these characters, which is good. Because that happens way too often, including in King of the Hill. Like they have, like Khan is voiced by a white guy. So,
I think also, there's one episode where we have babies. Tara Strong voices almost all of them.
Yeah.
Which, of course she does, dude. And now Wyatt's going to think about the time where she made them lactate on the set of Rugrats.
Yep.
Her baby cry was so good. And don't say it. Shut up. But like,
I'm thinking about it though. I'm thinking about it. I won't say it, but
there's another Tom Kenny role in the show. Oh, the president. That one. I don't know why Tom Kenny's voice is President James Nixon Garfield.
Yeah.
What a good joke. What a good joke. James Nixon Garfield just like, I will be your eternal president for the rest of your life. I'm like, he's taking it. He's doing it. The voice cast on the show is great.
My one last note about the voice acting is the fact that, they give certain characters accents is whatnot. Number 86 is Irish or Scottish. Then you have number 4 by D. Bradley Baker is given an Australian accent. His little name is Wallaby, by the way. Did y'all look that up?
Yeah.
And then you have Nigel Uno being British. And, when it comes to, like, the nature of American cartoons, most people give them, like, accents because, like, it's funny and whatnot. Or to, like, differentiate between characters. But when looking into the show and how, like, they expand upon it after season 1 and how it's, like, this global thing, it reminded me about how in the dub by Funimation of Yu Yu Hakusho, they give, like, certain characters accents, like Jin gets an Irish accent and Chu gets an Australian accent. And I found out
he gets like a British punk rocker kind of accent, Chu.
Right.
But you're right about Jin. Yeah.
But something I learned about the reason they did that was to emphasize the scale and diversity of participants in the Dark Tournament.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was intentional, but it does give that effect when you want to illustrate Kids Next Door as like an international organization.
Yeah. And just like the core group of characters, like, yeah, I know it's like 3 white boys, but then like, you know, the two, like it being like that nice Power Ranger split of 3 boys, 2 girls.
2 girls, yeah.
You know, and then the fact that they're like, oh, we're actually going to have like an Asian girl and a black girl be part of the team. If you remember from like, you know, if you've looked it up before, you know that the original plan was that number 5 would be silent and that number 3 would only speak in Japanese. And then they immediately understood that would be a very bad idea.
Racist and bad.
To only have the only 2 female characters, the only 2 non-white characters on the team not talk
And
would
not be
be like,
understandable, yeah.
yeah.
I did not know that. I'm very glad they did not make that decision.
Because the way it works out now, it's like, oh yeah, this actually is like a pretty good, like, diverse team of characters. And like now, you know, it's interesting thinking about it now, like a similar show like Craig of the Creek, because I mean, it's like after season 4, you have like the Stump kids are like split into 2 and 2. Yeah. You know, as far as like, you know, you have the two black kids and then 2 white kids. You know, before it's just like, oh, there's Craig and then there's his 2 white sidekicks, which I appreciate because in every other fucking cartoon, it's like white kid and his nerdy black sidekick, which we have talked about, you know, because of Irwin and things like that. It's like in The Loud House, it's in, you know, Fairly Odd Parents. Yeah, Danny Phantom, all this other shit. So it's just like good to have that. That just feels better, even if like the balance is still off. Like it's like having Craig as the leader of the group. You know, he's the name of the show. He's the most important of the 3. Not saying Kelsey and JP are not like important and aren't. They are both excellent characters, you know, but it's just like that just feels better. And then, you know, we can see like how things have like changed over the years, and they're being a little bit more conscious about putting in these characters just because it gives you more diversity in storytelling. It's not the evil DEI fucking demons coming in and forcing it. These are creatives that want to tell more stories, or they have a team of people that are like, hey, I want somebody that's like me represented so I can tell a story about my own childhood, like in a show like Craig of the Creek. Like there's a lot of episodes where it's like, oh yeah, you know,
let's get
like
this person to work on it because it's their background. Yeah, like.
Yeah. So it's just, I just appreciate that, you know, with this show, like sort of like breaks some ground on that and starts like moving things in that direction, you know, again, with like a lot of the focus on like diversity just in this, like what you said with like the different accents and the different like kids all around the world and like different, you know, different skin colors and things like that. So.
Yeah. Not to spend too much time on the very good point you're making, Wyatt, but it reminds me of like Owen Dennis was on the Creative Block podcast, and he wanted to have like different people represented in each season. And like an executive literally came up to him and basically asked him, "Are you trying to do like this Burger King Kids Club thing here?" And he was like, "No, I just want different types of people to be represented." So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I remember hearing that and being like, "That's disgust." Like I would be so
super
mad.
Fucked up. Yeah, like
if a fucking executive came up to me and like patronized me to that, got angry about the fact, like, no, you fucking idiot. I just want to do a wide range of story, you know?
You fucking
like,
ghoul.
Yeah. Like what the fuck? Like, especially like, you know, it's like season 4 of Infinity Train, like that has Ryan and Mingy, and they are, you know, they're both Asian, they're both different nationalities, but you know, and like, but it's their stories are very specific to their identity, you know, and it feels very authentic, and it feels like and it feels like they're actually like
people
taking that, they're taking that, and they're not just using it as like a like whatever these people think they're doing. They're trying to tell like a compelling story about the emotional state of these two people, how they're connected, how their like misery is connected to one another, and how they both need to solve like their interpersonal problem in order to move on, you know. So it's just like, why not just try to read, especially like if you have a crew of people like that aren't just like white guys telling the stories. Like, why wouldn't you want to have more to work with to tell stories? I don't get it. I don't understand like these people that get so upset at the mere idea of diversity, you know. But
I think they're just racist. But
yes, that's the. But they can't admit it because they know that that's bad on some level. They know that it's bad, but they can't admit that it's like, look, you just have grown up in a racist country like America, and you're just like part of this system, and it's just like you are still falling victim to these. You're not immune to propaganda. You're not immune to the conditions that you have grown up in. You just need to be able to fight against that and, you know, come to these understandings that it's like, it's not fucking an evil government conspiracy theory that people are putting lesbians in video games. Okay, that's not.
Well, it is when I do it.
Sure. Yeah. You're working with the Illuminati to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's actually pretty easy to join the Illuminati. It's like super easy. Like,
yeah. You can do an online application for it. Yeah.
Last note on this before I move on to some production notes, facts that I found interesting. The whole, it being conspiracy thing, I recently was thinking about that, watched a video on it about, the reason why people buy into that is probably because I guess they feel it's less embarrassing than having to grapple with how they, have a weird problem with, too many black people in Star Wars or whatever. And, you know, I guess in their own mind, it seems like a more, it turns into a noble cause or whatnot, and it's something that they used as an excuse in order to keep them from being called racist or grappling with trying to understand why this specific thing bothers them. But
no, go ahead. No, go ahead. You go first. Oh,
sure. Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm gonna say before we go to production, one thing I want to bring up before we move on to that stuff. We and Wyatt talked about this a few weeks ago on Robot Jones about how important music is to cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Bangers on bangers in this fucking show.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The Chicken Nugget song from the Gold Rush episode.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot stop singing that.
Yeah.
Just and what you can't get, baby, you better steal. Tell them. Also, Guar coming in and composing and writing a song for this show. Fucking metal as hell.
An entire 11-minute sort of
rock opera. Yes.
Just so good. Especially because this is around the same time at maybe a year later or whatever would be when Metalocalypse becomes a thing, you know, and then that became that's when my eyes really opened up to the idea of oh, what if half the episode was just a music video in that show, you know.
Yeah,
yep.
With all their giant penises and blood being shot out your ass and all that stuff that they do on stage, they couldn't. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because Guar is not for the kids. They do rule, but they're not for the kids.
Oh wow, they're a couple episodes from each other too. The two things that we just one is episode 2 of season 4, and then one is episode 3 of season 4. So there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
who wants to go first on production? Because I got some. I have 2 facts to share a theme basically in terms of how this show was produced.
Well, the only stuff that I know that the Mo Willems was involved, who was in Sheep in the Big City, which we've already done, which was a show that was pretty funny, but it just kind of drags itself out. You know, it's it's a good show, but it's not
it's not for
good.
Us.
Yeah, it's not for us, and it's not a great binge watch for a podcast or anything. It would be a good one-off sort of thing. Like that's basically like, but otherwise, like I'm not 100%, and I know a little bit about Mr. Warburton, Pepper Ann, and stuff like that, and Doug beforehand. So if there's anything else that's like interesting that you want to talk about, ahead.
Well, I will say that both Mo Williams' show, Sheep in the Big City, and Codename Kids Next Door are both produced by the same company, Curious Pictures, and also Mo Williams was, as you said, a writer on numerous of the first episodes. But one thing I wanted to talk about is something that I've been thinking about recently is how, like, sometimes stuff will change in production because, like, it's not appropriate or whatnot. But other times, they, like, executives will force people to change something in a show because it's too similar to something else that is on or in pop culture at that certain point in time. And every time I see something like that, it's 90% of the time I feel it's justified. So, like, for example, the show was originally going to be called The Kids Next Door, and but they forced them to change it to Codename Kids Next Door. Well, that's the name they decided on. Because there was a show in production at the time called The Pigs Next Door, according to Warburton's blog.
Right.
Now, if you probably don't know about this show because there's no Wikipedia page for it, but Pigs Next Door is one of those, like, government-mandated European co-productions about pigs living in the city. It was actually supposed to air on prime time in the United States. It had people like John Goodman doing a voice, but it just never did. So, like, you'll probably see people in, like, Germany or wherever maybe saw this show during their childhood, but, like, we didn't because it didn't air on one of the popular networks. They also, Kids Next Door was originally going to have a lot more high-tech equipment, but then Exec Cartoon Network said, well, we already have Dexter's Laboratory, and that show sort of has the whole tech kid thing covered. So that basically resulted in everyone using 2x4 technology, like making stuff out of, like, wood and stuff, which really became, like, a big part of the show. And I just find it's interesting because usually, messing with people's vision is sort of like a detriment. But, like, these changes, like changing it from Kids Next Door to Codename Kids Next Door and how kids use the technology, it basically went on to, like, define what the show is and make it stand out from everything. Because, like, you think of Kids Next Door, you may think it's like, oh, it's like Recess. But, like, Recess is, like, entirely grounded. It's basically just, like, Oz for kids, basically. But Kids Next Door, it's, like, sure, it's, like, technological, but, like, everything's made out of, like, mustard dispensers and stuff. So it really, like, definitely sets it apart.
The 2x4 technology.
Yeah. This even goes farther back with, like, Warburton short Kenny and the Chimp. Like, originally the main character,
which we talked about
okay,
like the first pilot episode of we talked about that in the very first pilot,
and how this was just going to be a spinoff of that, and then it was just better than to Kenny and the Chimp. But but yeah, no, I think, like, the 2x4 technology is, like, a great example of, like, changes helping, because there's very much as a kid, I pick up something that feels like it's a sword or a gun, and it feels like it's a sword or a gun now. Like, kid quality to the technology. Like,
the classic boy play pattern of going outside, picking up a stick, and hitting each other with sticks.
Yes,
and
like,
just being like,
because, like,
why aren't we just playing with dolls? Like, why are we doing this?
Just like, yo, if I put a little handle on this ketchup dispenser, this is a laser. And I'm like, that's what they showed them. I'm like, you know what? They're right. This does feel like a laser, dude. This is the sickest shit on earth. Yeah. Like, it really does, like, help itself into, like, the vibe of the show.
And I also do want to give a big shout out to the fact that it's like they did, change the name from The Kids Next Door to Codename Kids Next Door. Everybody on the fucking planet of Earth just calls it Kids Next Door.
Kids Next Door.
Like, they just does, and nobody except for, like you said, maybe people in Germany and, like, Belgium are like, oh yeah, Pigs Next Door, that's the shit,
Yeah.
So it's just, like, funny that still it's like how it's like with Avatar, where it's like, yeah, the James Cameron movie, those are more popular. But like when people say Avatar, it's like 90% of the time they're talking.
No
about
one's
the Last
thinking
Airbender.
about the culturally insensitive blue guy.
Yeah.
No. Also,
People from Italy that I talked to would disagree, actually, but
about Avatar.
Yeah, that more people know about the Blue People movie than the Nickelodeon anime.
Yeah.
All right.
I think maybe in a in the sense of if you're talking to like a random person off the street and you mention Avatar, they'd be like, oh yeah, the James Cameron movie. But like if you're talking with somebody online and you're talking about if you're having an online discussion or whatever, if you're with other fucking nerds and you just say Avatar, like if you're talking with your dad and you bring up Avatar, yeah, they're gonna not know what the hell you're talking about.
I'm willing to bet money if I say Avatar to my mother right now, she will think of The Last Airbender.
Sure.
But also, so the side thing, I think the hardest thing is if you go, man, you guys know the showed us like the little bit racist Avatar thing, then they would be confused. They don't know which one you're talking about. But also, one last thing I meant to talk about and I forgot. These guys love The Matrix, right?
Yeah.
So is the trans episode accidental? Because if they love The Matrix, I feel like it might not be. I've been agonizing over this since I've watched this show again. Because Heinrich, yes, because the idea that Heinrich was cursed to be a boy and got grounded by her parents. And then once the curse was lifted and she was no longer grounded by her controlling parents, she's now a girl again, is maybe the most one-for-one trans allegory thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I need to talk to work like this. Listen, you're a Matrix head. Are you locked in?
Yeah.
Were you locked in, buddy? There's something you want to tell us with this weird German girl?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's very good. Just that stuff like that too. Like the fact that number 5 gets an entire like side plot with the candy hunting, like
with
this
her
Indiana Jones parody.
With her white girl situationship. Like we've all been there. I've been there, I've been there with my white girl situationship who uses she, her pronouns, but is a little racist on the timeline. We've all been there, just
Yeah. But yeah, that's I don't know, is there anything else that we need to talk about? I have like one more point, but I just want to know if anybody else has anything that they want to talk about before we wrap it up.
Oh, I just had some stuff about Operation Zero, the last.
Oh yeah, the movie.
The movie. Yeah.
Well, that okay. So real quick before we get into that, before we get into some of the because we didn't spend enough time talking about some of the bigger, more epic, plot lines. We talked about a few of them, but we should talk a little more about that. But in that area, I have seen a good amount of people online that are like, go back to Kids Next Door and you'll find out that it's mid or it's just like corny or not funny or whatever. And that is just, obviously I don't agree with it. And I think it's fine if they believe it. But the fact that they think it's like objectively true that like the comedy hasn't aged well or whatever, it's like corny. It's like, how can you as an adult get any entertainment value out of like kids power fantasy stuff? And it's like,
oh my god, you should be decommissioned tomorrow, you piece of shit.
Yeah. It's such an idiotic statement in my opinion. It's such a statement of I feel this way, so I have to overly justify why I feel this way and sort of make it like a moral problem for you. Like you have some type of like moral or intellectual failing that I'm calling out. Yeah. And it's like, I know I just called that idea idiotic, so maybe I'm doing the same thing. But
I'm doing it. I'm doing the same thing. Like, dude, listen, just because your brain is broken, like you can't realize why a show for kids about kids power fantasy would feel good for the most underrepresented and mistreated class in America. Go fuck yourself. I'm being mean for you, Wyatt. Go ahead. Sorry.
But I'm saying that like as an adult, like watching it, the appeal for me is like, oh, isn't it fun? Like, it's funny because these are things that are being misinterpreted through the eyes of children. Sometimes they're 100% spot on. As in, like, whatever, like, crazy conspiracy they think is happening, it turns out to literally be true. And then sometimes, you know, it's just like a misunderstanding. Yeah, and it's, like, funny. You know, like, that is funny. And then second, the, like, it's hard to overstate how important this show is for, like, the continued existence of shows. I know nowadays, like, the past couple of years, things have been pretty rough
Pretty
for
dire.
television cartoons. But, like, there was a period of time there in, like, the 2010s up through, like, the early 2020s that, like, we got these shows that did have, like, long storylines that had, like, you know, these worlds that were, like, built out and everything. We had, like, big epic season finales. Kids Next Door is, like, a amuse-bouche of epic season finales and, like, multi-part episodes and things like that. All of them are so good. There's, like, multiple of them that, like, did make me cry. You know, like the Maurice episode obviously is, like, one of them. The Operation Zero, you know,
I still
like,
think about that.
Like, that is so good.
Najandel's dad gives at the end, because it really stuck with me when I watched it as a kid.
Yeah, no, like this show very much is like, guys, I listen. Oh, Kids Next Door's mid. Whatever, dude, you're stupid. I don't want to deal with that. But like, we wouldn't have the storytelling we get in Gravity Falls or Steven Universe and stuff like that without the way this show did it.
Yeah.
Like, full stop, you know? Because, like, even the shows before, like, even though, like, you could say, like, Papa Girl, stuff like that, those are still comedy shows that, like, every episode is pretty standalone and doesn't have to think about anything else. Like, even those pseudo-action shows were still operating on that format and formula. Like, this show changed that.
Yeah, even, like, Batman.
But speaking of Gravity Falls, I wanted to talk about this pilot that Warburton made called Galactic Kid Next Door, which is basically...
Yes.
Now, I want you to... Because I experienced this dropping firsthand back in 2015.
Yep.
And it was...
Me too.
It was a very interesting time because I was looking at stuff on Tumblr for the shows I watched, and... You know, we're in this area where people are watching cartoons. Now, I want you to imagine this. Monday, March 9th, 2015, the Gravity Falls episodes Not What He Seems airs, which basically confirms a lot of theories that people have been following the show since the beginning in 2012. Then Thursday, March 12th, the Steven Universe jailbreak happened as part of the first Steven bomb, which has all these lines.
Introduction of my waifu Jasper.
And literally, and so
shut up, Morgan.
So people who are watching both shows are literally talking about how everything's confirmed, everything's changed, and literally next week, this animatic drops on YouTube, and is basically just unannounced, just like this. Basically, for most people who go on Tumblr, was basically a possible revival / continuation of this show they used to watch when they were kids. And anybody who doesn't know what this is, you could probably watch like the whole thing on YouTube now. But but it was people who were obsessed with this show, like, went nuts. Like, they've been watching Cartoon Network their entire lives. There was a whole website called Rainbow Monkey website, which you could look up on the K&D wiki, that basically gave clues to where everyone was at that current point in time based on the new events that occurred in the pilot, which I will now post in the chat here. But basically, I remember it being, and something was supposed to drop on April 1st, which was like another animatic that continued basically what the case was. Like, certain characters were revealed to be aliens, and they were trying to eliminate everybody that
well, because that's how the finale, you know, like, reveals the existence of the Galactic Kids Next Door, and, you know, that, like, number one is, like, accepted to join it, and then it ends up being, like, you know, that's like a metaphor for, like, moving away. Growing up, moving away, that kind of thing, and then the fact that they continue to be friends despite that, and Yeah, like with the Galactic Kids Next Door, what happened was people found the like one animatic that they made too early, like early on in March when it was supposed to be. That was the one thing that they made for it, and then because they found it and the countdown was still happening, people were like, "What's gonna happen? Like when it reaches." Is something else gonna happen? So they had to like quickly make a second one that was sort of like referencing the fact that it was like that it was found out early and everything with like number 3, number 4, and with the alien, the number plant or whatever, who it turns out to be Lizzie, is like that's a very good, like the initial animatic is the only thing
Real
that they
content,
made.
yeah,
and then the other one is just like a follow-up sort of explaining the situation, like maybe this will be a thing. It's crazy that this is almost 10 years ago at this point.
I'll get into that first, but first I gotta mention the finale Operation Interviews, because most people probably haven't seen it because they didn't put that up on HBO Max. It's basically an interview with all the former Sector Z characters, minus number 1, but it's in live action footage and they're all adults. Just thought I mentioned that since most people listen to this probably
it's like the final. It's the
No,
final,
a lot of people seen it,
birthday
though.
Episode. Yeah, the final like caked episode basically.
Yeah, but like I guess I'm thinking about people who are like older than me who are just learning about this, want to like learn
or
about
younger.
the show. But
well, that episode is one of the few episodes that's on YouTube actually too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. That's on YouTube. The Billy and Mandy crossover is on YouTube. So
which you didn't watch. Fuck. I should have remembered to watch that.
Dude, I have such a weird relationship with the Galactic Kids Next Door stuff.
Yeah.
Because I am iconically a buzzkill when it comes to nostalgia. Wyatt knows this about me.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, guys, there's no way he's making this. Like I didn't want to be sober for everybody. I'm like, guys, I don't want to be that person, but there's no way he's making this.
Yeah.
Please.
This was like if that was a thing, if that never happened and they did it again in like 2021, maybe. Like I think that there's a high chance, just because like nostalgia was a lot more of a selling point at that point, IPs, that kind of thing. But also it was a proven to be successful formula of having like, oh, here's these more serialized cartoons, these like mini series or things like that, like Infinity Train, which was a very popular show despite the fact that it got canceled. And stuff that have been on, shows that were on Netflix and everything like that. Like if that was just like 5 years later, there might have been a chance that it could be picked up. But at that time, that was just the wrong place at the wrong time. Like that's the unfortunate truth of it.
It's always like 50-50 when it comes to these things. Like every few years for all the networks, because like 3 years prior, on April 1st, like Toonami came back like out of the blue. In 2012. And the thing is, when they did that whole reboot thing, it wasn't like, we're not going to make this for the kids. We're going to make this block for all of you that grew up on the original Toonami. And it's still been going ever since. So, and then there's also...
Well, like, the thing is, though...
And also there's like Samurai Jack coming back, which they switched from over traditional to digital, and it literally looks like the show never left. But I suspect... Because, this is pitching itself as like a legacy, like sequel, quadruple, whatever you want to call it, coming back. I suspect that Cartoon Network maybe was, whoever was executives at the time were considering it. But then, like 2 years later, they were looking over what Nickelodeon was doing. Merger. Because, 2 years later, in November, the Hey Arnold Jungle movie premieres on Nickelodeon, which was this big requested movie that people wanted. It didn't do the numbers that Nickelodeon wanted, which resulted in them just dumping the Rocco movie and the Invader Zim movie on Netflix. So I suspect that, at that time, Cartoon Network just didn't want to go through something like that and a movie or a series. But like I said, 50-50. like Fiona and Cake was really popular. So
the thing is, though, I feel like those are like really different situations. Though. Like, I feel like Gendy Tartakovsky's works you can't even compare to anyone else's work because that man is a fucking award machine. You know, like you can't like him. There was always going to be a Samurai Jack as long because the company wanted it. They were like, hey, Gendy, do you want to make your side things? And then if you just gotta make a Samurai Jack again, he's like, whatever. Like, I truly think like on like. Like, I think, like, straight up, like, on, like, the premise of Galactic Kids Next Door, what we saw of the work for it, I think at no point was anyone at Cartoon Network interested. And it bums me out, but, like even the thing with, like, the April Fool's joke for Toonami, like, that's so much less work than doing a new work project, you know? Yeah. They reuse animation, they got Steve, he's always available. He does everything. They just had to call him and then air, like, programming they owned already, you know? Like... Yeah. I just think that, like, when it comes to revivals of cartoons across the board, like, especially with the era of 2002 to like 2009 cartoons, I think a lot of fans online don't get how this stuff works. Yeah. Because like when people are like, oh man, did you guys see that Courage pilot? They're gonna be making a new show. No, they're not. He just made a new pilot. I don't know. I don't know how to tell you guys this. Pilots die every 3 days.
Yeah, and things in development or things in like if something is in development, that does not mean that it's like actually going to reach production and then come out, which is sad. But there are so many. I mean, just from being like having, friends on the show and talking with things, off the record about certain things, I've learned about so many things where it's like, oh yeah, this person had a show and it was canceled, like midway through development, or it only like reached a certain point in development, and like, so that's why when people go up and they're like, oh, Craig McCracken, he's making a new Powerpuff Girls show, and he's like, no. They asked me to develop a new Powerpuff Girls show. That is not the same thing as it being greenlit and us actually producing a new Powerpuff Girls show. The Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends show, that is real. That is being made. Whether it will last more than one season remains to be seen. But, considering the state that Cartoon Network is in.
But like these corporations do not do guerrilla marketing like this, guys. Like they do not do like this sneaky little, hey, no, these motherfuckers are going to be swinging shit at you. There's Comic-Con, there's all these conventions, there's all this stuff. None of these companies are going to sneakily tell you a cartoon you loved is coming back.
And like, I would be interested to see, I'll say that, about Galactic Kids Next Door. Like, I think it's a cool idea to do like like some kind of sequel series where it's like, oh, yes, exactly. But the way the show has ended, it didn't really leave any room. It didn't leave me wanting more. It just left me like very satisfied because not only did we get like a really emotionally satisfying ending with the interviews episode, but we also got like a really awesome movie with the Operation Zero, and we got plenty of seasons worth of like great storytelling and character wrap-ups and things like that, Yeah,
there's 78 episodes, 2 movies, and a Halloween and a Christmas special. Like, I don't know if we need. Like, I don't think we need it anymore.
Yeah, it's fine. We don't really need it to exist. I don't think it shouldn't exist just because, like I said, I've seen people be like, you shouldn't exist because you don't actually like Kids Next Door. It's not good.
Those are dumb.
And it's like, that's not the point. The point is, like, in general, whether or not we need like revitalizations of certain shows. There are some shows where I'm like, man, I would love to see more episodes of Mission Hill.
Yeah, but like, it's never the shows that need it. It's always the shows that people miss. Like, you guys, you don't want the show. You want to feel what you felt when you were a kid again. Yeah. Like, just rewatch the show. Like, I think there's just too much of like, listen, 90% of why we are the way we are with cartoons right now is because of corporations. I'm not gonna lie to you about that. But also 10% of that is also you motherfuckers going online with the nostalgia shit.
True. Like, I mean, I will agree on that point with a lot of stuff. Like, you see like all these like every now and then you'll see like an article that's like, oh my god, guys, oh my god, they're gonna reboot Inspector Gadget, and then when that thing airs on like Boomerang or whatever, like no one is actually talking about it. So
Yeah, you don't fucking care about Inspector Gadget, like.
But all right, we need to wrap this up.
We're
running a little bit long, so that was Kids Next Door. Malcom, thank you so much for coming on and talking about it and lending a lot of valuable insight and information. If anybody wants to find you, where should they go? Where should they look on that wide internet?
Well, I happen to have a link tree that because it was easy to make. That has my name. Malcmanishere. That's Malcman is here. And basically, I have a Twitter, Blue Sky. I sometimes post reviews on Letterboxd. You'll see where I am on that website. I'm basically trying to be like a freelance writer of some type. Would really appreciate some outlets that would hire from writing on like media analysis or maybe episode reviews. I've written some stuff for school newspapers, but also one essay, as I mentioned before, for an online magazine called Blood Knife. I was able to get through because the editor really liked my discussion on animation in their server, and he authored, basically, he recommended I write for the magazine, and when I had an idea, I wrote for them and got $60 off of it. So that's something
awesome.
I'm trying to write for this comic site called The Slings and Arrows, which is this very prestigious like comic review website. So, I mean, that's basically what I'm just trying to do at this current moment. Until, that's basically pretty much it. I appreciate this talk. I obviously did not say much, did not want to interrupt because like I'm not that type of person.
No, I mean you said plenty. You had said a ton. Like you had a lot of insight and everything. So I think that we had a pretty good discussion about the show. It's just that Morgan and I are also like very close friends, so sometimes we just talk to each other. Like
frankly, I was thinking that like, it's like listening to the podcast when I listen to you talk, so
yeah. Welcome to the podcast, baby. But yes, it was great to have you on. I really do hope that you are very well articulated and insightful as far as like cartoon opinions and like nerd crap goes. So I hope that does work out for you.
Before
Morgan.
I wanted to mention this fan artist I really like called TKG.
Okay.
They make a lot of Codename Kit. They made a lot of Codename Kids Next Door fan art in their time, and they're like from Japan. So basically, like, we talk about, people growing these attachments to shows that are mostly comedies but have intricate world building. This is like a perfect example of that. Mr. Warburton has also posted some of their artwork on their blog, but I found it very interesting because like the way they draw certain characters from the show is like very dynamic, where it almost looks like an anime eye catch in a way, or like a cover of a manga volume. I'm gonna post some in the chat here, but you could find some of it.
Oh man, that's really cool.
You can find some of it on Danburu or like on Warburton's blog. Like, if you just know the name, you could probably find it. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to recommend. Like, I just found it interesting. Like, there's that meme about like no matter how like small your favorite thing is, there's probably like a really talented artist that makes this really intricate artwork, like that Korean artist that made humanized versions of the Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Yeah, good stuff. But yeah, this looks great. Yeah, I think it does look very familiar, so I might have probably seen this artist like at some point in the past. But Morgan, why don't you let us know where we can find you on that wide sea we call the internet?
Okay. Hey, it's Morgan. You can find me at Girl Next Vor on Tumblr. I draw. You could fuck you. You can also find me. You can't find me on Coast anymore because it's dead. It is dead. I checked it a few days ago. It's gone. It's read only. So don't go on co-host, or if you do, go on it and like visit my grave, leave some flowers. I'm also on Blue Sky, but I am working with Father, and he plans on turning all of the staff that works on Blue Sky into animals using the code module. So it will be destroyed after I do that. Lastly, you can find me on Twitter. It is a secret. I can't even think of a bit anymore about how to find me on fucking Twitter. You gotta find the secret ice cream vault to find the fourth flavor, and my Twitter account is written on the snow cone you find there. There it is. That's my bit. Wyatt, what about you? Where can we find you?
Go on over to twitter.com/WazPRanger. That's WAZP Ranger. It's mostly stream of consciousness stuff, but I do post about new videos I upload to my channel. If you're listening to this on the channel right now, then that means next you are listening to it on the free feed. You can get next week's episode right now. I think next week's episode is Duck Dodgers. So
holy shit!
Be excited for that. I have not seen that show in like 20 years.
Me fucking neither. Oh, we're dude.
Yeah. We'll find them, and if that would be fun. But yeah, so you can get that episode potentially with a guest, apparently, with at just the $5 level on Patreon. Patreon is also It's Only Magic. A lot of cool stuff on there. A Patreon exclusive series. If just like me, you're getting back into Transformers because of the 40th anniversary and stuff like Transformers 1. Me and my friend Cody went through every single one of the live action Transformers movies, reviewed them. All of them are garbage except for like one. So that's,
Bumblebee Hive, stand up! Bumblebee Hive, stand up!
So there you go. You can get all those at the $5 level as well. They're exclusive on Patreon, and also at the $1 level. If you only got $1, that's fine, because we also have Wow Cool Ropod, which is me and my friend Wayne, aka Bolt Creature, on Twitter. We go through and review every single robot in existence. It's like 5 to 10 minute episodes. You get them all. There's 100 episodes, over 100 episodes at this point, that are there, and you can like, bam, just listen to them all. Listen to us talk everything from like, talk about Gur. We talk about, Beast Wars characters. We talk about Gundam characters. We talk about, or robots from Gundam.
They're not characters. Come on, lock in.
Yeah. We talk about the Big Zam. Yeah. So go ahead, check that out. Just $1, and you get that. And if you do $5, then you also get the mini-series, and you also get these episodes a week early. One whole smacking week early.
7 days.
Yeah, 7 whole freaking days early. And I upload them on Fridays to recreate that feeling of Cartoon Fridays. So check that out. But thank you so much again for coming on and talking about Kids Next Door. It was a fun one. It was a long one, too. Might be our longest episode so far. So, yeah. You're like, is this longer than the Dexter's Lab episode or whatever?
We gotta have Steve on and make it even longer. We gotta bitch about the reboot with Steve then. That's how we gotta make up.
But all right. It was fun having you guys, or having you on. Join us next time, and we're going to be talking about Duck Dodgers. See you there.
Later.